to have you on the show as well. I know our time is short, so I'm going to go ahead and just allow you to introduce yourself, and then we will get started right from there.
Sure, I would like that. So, I'm Prathamesh Shinde. I have been in Texas for the past 2.5 years, in the US as well for the past 2.5 years. I'm a digital analyst, so I work with the social media for brands. Essentially, I'm from Mumbai in India, which is in western part of India, and basically I came to the US for better opportunities and getting a global perspective for bettering my professional life. So that's my background. I'm very passionate about Indian politics and policy making. uh, I love to follow politics. I am a very dedicated political commentator on my own social media as well.
Right.
So that's me.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you on the show. For those of you guys who don't know, P is my coworker, one of my favorite coworkers. We always have a good time together, and I'm always learning from him. So I have him on the show today because we're going to talk about the Indian farmer protests that I've been seeing. I've been seeing so much P since December about the protests. I know there were some protests here in the United States, and so I just want you to kind of share with us and explain to us exactly what's going on in India and why it kind of matters for the US. I've seen the suicide rates have gone up for farmers, and so can you just kind of walk us through that and explain what's going on?
Sure. I'll start with what is happening in the US regarding the Indian farmer protest.
Right.
So, Indian farmer community, basically a particular community within India, even the
Mm-hmm.
Sikh community, which is the backbone of the rice and wheat cultivations in India.
Mm-hmm.
They cultivate rice and wheat in the northern part of India. They are pretty aggressive about these new farm laws that have been modified in India. These communities are in huge number in the US. They form the backbone of the immigrant truckers class of the United States freight system. They contribute to around 20% of the immigrant truckers in the US.
Mm.
And they are pretty much a very active part of politics even in North America.
Wow.
So this community, the Sikh and Punjabi community, basically decided to hold protest at all consulate general of India locations in the US. These
Mm.
are our Indian embassies in the US. The major protests happened in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mm.
They flooded the San Francisco roads with protest flags and signs, and
Mm.
they also happened on the Republic Day of India, that is 26th January, at the Houston location that is here in Texas.
Mm. Wow.
So what these farmers essentially want is they want the Indian government to go back and revise these laws.
Mm.
Basically, what these three new laws address are three different things. The
Okay.
first law basically addresses, which is actually a good thing. Uh, the first law basically says that farmers can now finally sell their crops in the open market. Currently, India's markets are closed. They are basically controlled by a system known as Agricultural Produce Market Commission,
Okay.
which is APMC. So, this commission was established by the government to ensure that people get the minimum support price, that is, the minimum price they can sustain their livelihoods with for the crops.
For the crop. Okay.
Right. So what is government doing is now, these new laws were due since like over a decade, rather more than a decade. You could say like since 2 3 decades. But because of the monopoly certain middlemen have in these APMC market, the government could not go ahead and modify these laws.
Mm.
Now the government has absolute majority in both the houses, and that's why they could do pass these laws. So
Okay.
what this does is the first law basically opens up the market for private players instead of the government controlled APMC markets,
Mm,
which is a really good thing.
it's a good thing. Okay.
It's a good thing and which is needed. But this government basically is backed by crony capitalism.
Mm,
So they modified the law in a way which can actually only help the couple of people who are close to the government.
mm,
So the first law, the first law is lacking a very basic thing. They are opening the market for farmers to get better price, so there's competition. But the first law doesn't mention anything about the minimum support price, which was guaranteed under the old system. The old
okay.
system is already unfair to the farmers, but now in the new system, they are removing the minimum support price. They're saying that we are not removing it, but they are not mentioning it in the law that
Mm,
it's gonna continue. So
okay.
if you are not mentioning something in a law, that means it doesn't exist,
Right.
right? So the big farmers probably would have good deals with the capitalists or the private players, and they will get through. But this is about smaller farmers because India has been a far agrarian economy for the past 50, 60 years. So
Mm,
what has happened as our population exploded, big farms were divided amongst the sons of the owners. They were further divided amongst sons of the sons. So
okay.
this has led to the farms shrinking in size
Ooh.
over the past few decades. So that's why what's going to happen is the small farmers won't have any negotiating power when the first law is implemented with
Mm,
the crony capitalists. So this is the first law. Now moving on to the next law. The second law basically allows farmers to enter into contracts with these private players. So which is again a good thing.
mm,
They have some kind of written assurance that they would provide this thing. But there is no framework defined within the law that says that the contract should have this structure. The contract will have such protection for party A and party B.
okay.
So the problem is, if there is no framework for the contracts, what is going to happen is the farmer enters into a contract. He is probably half educated or not educated at all, and later there is no way for him to go to a court or anything. There's no legal framework mentioned that if a contract goes wrong, or if the private player just says that the farmers doesn't meet the minimum requirements of quality for the product or the
Right.
crop, he cannot go and challenge that. There
Mm,
is no framework defined for that. So the second law is also a really positive thing, but it is half baked. Both first and second laws are half baked, and they need to revise them. So these protests are happening for revising the farm laws, not for repelling them. They wanted them repelled in the current state, not
mm,
completely.
not completely. Okay.
Not completely. They want the government to come back to the table and discuss it. Now,
Mm,
the third and final law is actually not a good thing. The
okay.
first two laws are needed. The final law is needed in a really modified form. The third law says that India has a list of essential commodities currently, and any player in the market, be it private or government backed, they cannot stock it, so that they cannot basically uh, artificially increase the price or decrease the price. So they cannot stockpile. Cannot have a stockpile which is beyond the defined limits of stocking.
Mm.
So,
So
for
it's set.
example,
So it's set essentially.
it's set. There
Okay.
are these are essential commodities. For example, yellow pulses.
Okay.
We have a lot of yellow pulses back in India, yellow lentils basically. So these are essential for the protein intake of the vegetarian population in India.
Mm,
But ever since this government came into power back in 2014, the price of pulses skyrocketed by up to 400%.
mm.
That
Wow.
is four times. Like it was phenomenal, and this was led by one of the government backers.
Mm,
So
wow.
this particular capitalist basically is in partnership with an American firm here, and they started packaged food businesses, and they stockpiled these pulses, and that led to the price going up by up to 400%. So now the third farm law basically eradicates the entire list of essential commodities, most of them,
Mm.
and this is gonna lead to risk of food shortage
Mm.
if someone stocks it up and doesn't let it go into the market.
Wow. Wow.
So that's why the Essential Commodities Act, that is the third law, either should be completely repealed or should be modified in a way where the government can intervene and control it. So
Mm.
these are the three laws. Now, as I said, most of the non-violent farmer protests are here for discussing with the government.
Okay.
They want uh, they want it to be modified, not completely repealed.
Okay.
So now, how does this affect the US? The US gets affected in a way that US is dependent on India for certain commodities like turmeric or turmeric, as it's said here, or ginger and chilies. These are like really small examples. But if someone is not able to control the stocking, the supply to the US can get affected. The US might get it for a higher price than what it is getting right now. It
Mm.
might not be a fair price right now, but it might be a higher price which is not fair to the US residents in a later date in the future.
Right.
There's a good reason that if some other country is paying the private player more money, they would completely divert the supply from the US to any other country.
Mm.
That can occur.
That could right.
On a diplomatic note, there have been certain, I can't say violations of human rights, but they have been kind of poked. Activists have been jailed for creating social media campaigns against the laws.
Wow.
There was a huge uproar because of that, because we had international celebrities, including Greta Thunberg and a few US celebrities tweeting about them,
Mm.
including Khalifa. Even she also tweeted about the farmer laws. So what happened is a activist was actually jailed because she started this campaign where celebrities could tweet about it.
Mm.
She got bail from the Supreme Court, but that's how. So US and India diplomatic relations can go south in case the government is so adamant on suppressing the voice back in India,
Wow.
because none of the farmer protests in its original sense are aggressive. They are just there. They are not doing anything. They are staying outside the national capital. They're not even entering the national capital. It's been more than 100 days. Today it's the 104th day of the protest, I guess. So that is it. This is how India US relations can go down south in case the government doesn't follow the basic human rights. You cannot jail someone for speaking out in a democracy.
Right.
India is a sister democracy of the US. India adopted democracy on the lines of the United States Constitution.
Mm.
Our democratic constitution is very similar to the US. Our composition of the country is very similar to the US because we have different states, different cultures,
Right.
a huge population, varied population. So I really feel it is important that India is a really important strategic ally for the US in Asia, specifically for countering China's monopolistic supply of goods around the world. Because India after the COVID pandemic, India is actually has invested heavily into electronics manufacturing. So the biggest Indian mobile manufacturers, the smartphone manufacturers, they actually supply smartphones to Sprint, AT&T, and T-Mobile.
Mm.
So what, for example, you see Revel branded smartphones from T-Mobile. They're manufactured by the Indian manufacturers. They're not manufactured by T-Mobile.
Right.
So a lot of supply rests on the case that India remains stable.
Mm,
If India gets unstable, the supply chain gets affected to the US.
I see.
And finally, covering a large part of US population today is South Asian.
Right.
It includes Indians and everyone. The Sikh community, they control 20% of the immigrant trucker population of the US.
Wow.
20% of the immigrant trucker population. So out of every immigrant trucker in the US, 1 in 5 truckers is Sikh.
Wow.
So if their relatives back in India, they're growing for the food security of India, and now today they are under distress, they
Mm,
cannot concentrate on their job here.
they can, right. Absolutely not. So for those, my final question for you is for do you think they're frustrated, even though it sounds like from what you're saying, they're demonstrating and protesting peacefully, there's still a lot of suicides among these farmers. Is it like these laws that are just driving them to take their own life? They're so worried about it. Do they not think there's gonna be a solution? What's causing so many farmer suicides, in your opinion?
So one of the things is farmers do not get the price they need to sustain their livelihoods.
Mm,
It's been a problem. That's why the first two laws are needed.
okay.
And farmer suicides are a it's been on the uptrend for the past 25 years.
Wow.
And none of the state governments or the federal government, that is the central government in India, as we say it, hasn't been able to do anything. So
Mm,
every year, each of the government just goes in and like writes off their loans so
right.
that there are less suicides. The
Okay.
first two laws are needed to fix this,
Wow.
because then farmers can earn their livelihoods and they don't default on their loans.
Mm,
It's a bigger problem. The farmer suicides are kind of related to the laws, but it's a bigger problem. They need to fix the system. There should be better storage facilities. There should be better distribution facilities. All that is related. And there should be better education amongst the farmers, like how much fertilizer should be used, and all that is related. So farmer suicides, even though they are a big part of these laws,
right.
like they can be fixed because of the laws, but it's not only the laws that cause them. There's
Okay.
a bigger problem out there.
Wow. So in these protests, are they raising, I mean, you said it's been happening for 25 years now almost, the suicide. So is Modi, is anyone trying to do something to address that, or they're more just focused on those laws?
Currently, these protests are focused on the laws.
On the laws, okay.
Yeah, they are just focused on the laws.
Wow, wow. Oh my gosh. Well, I do thank you for coming on the show and explaining to us and sharing with us. I can't believe you said day 104 on that protest, but I do want to have you back on the show when we have a little bit more time so we can go even more in depth. But I do thank you for coming on and bringing awareness, P. And yeah, and for any of you down there who want to follow him, or if you have any questions, his information right there is down below, and you can follow him on IG at Casual Clicker. So we will talk soon, P. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. See you again soon.
Yeah, see you. Alrighty, you guys. So we had two great interviews so far. If you were just now tuning in, you are watching the Jaira Nicole Show every Tuesday from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. We have a final guest who's going to be joining us a little bit later, but we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back to talk about some things. right, you guys. If you're just now tuning in, this is the Jared Nicole Show every Tuesday from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Time. I'm so glad to have you guys on here. We still have one more final guest to come, Miss Jordan Knight, who will be joining us from Switzerland. So stay tuned for my interview with her. But I want to go ahead and finish talking about some of the things that I was discussing a little bit earlier about the mask and Get Over It Day. And also today is National Barbie Day, you guys. Who remembers Barbie? How can anybody forget? I wanted to talk about this day because Barbies were such a big they were such a big deal for me. I think I would say any 90s kid who liked dolls, I would say essentially, was into Barbie. I know I was. I'm pretty sure I gave all my Barbies away to my younger cousins, but I was obsessed. You guys, with Barbie. And Barbie turned 62 today, you guys. Barbie turned 62. Doesn't she? Doesn't she look great? But I'm sure as many of you know, Barbie got a lot of flag. Barbie got some controversy based on how she looks. I'm going to pull up another picture for you guys right there. As you can see, over the years, Barbie has become, more diverse. I remember back in the 90s going to the stores and I didn't see that many Barbies, obviously, that looked like me. Yes, there were Black Barbies, but I would definitely say now within the last 10 years, Barbie's even gotten more diverse. Again, if you look at this picture, you can see coming in different shapes, different shapes, skin color, and then also now they're doing like careers. I think I saw not that long ago, there's a Barbie who had a hijab, and I think it's great. Barbie is definitely making strides. I think in terms of body shape and weight, I think she has a little bit more to go. And I know there were some parents who were complaining they didn't like their children playing with Barbies because Barbie, I guess, kind of communicates the whole living in a materialistic world and item. But I want to know, any of you guys, even if you weren't a 90s kid, because again, Barbie came out in 1959. Were you guys playing with Barbies? Did you guys enjoy playing with Barbies at all growing up? I know people who are probably older than I am can talk about when Barbie existed and there was no diversity whatsoever, but I thought it would be fun to just talk a little bit about Barbie. The closest thing I have right now to Barbie, which definitely is a Barbie, would be these. So, and you guys might laugh, but I did want to bring these on here. I didn't see, obviously, Barbies that looked like this growing up. And this, again, it's not a Barbie. These are just dolls. I have this thing where every time, because I love to travel, whenever we would travel out of the country, my parents would take us on a family vacation. Back since I was a little girl, I love dolls. So everywhere I go, even now, I will get a doll that kind of reflects that. Like I got her, and I believe her in Jamaica, if I'm not mistaken, her in Jamaica, just something that reflects this. My mom bought it back for me from Peru. So just different things like that. But I think it's great that, dolls and toys and things like that, they're changing it and they're making sure they're more inclusive rather than exclusive. So that's really great. So I'm super excited to see what comes in the future in terms of toys. I don't know if you guys heard about it was pretty controversial. A lot of people are actually upset, but if you guys heard about the Mr. Potato Head is no longer from Toy Story, if we have any Toy Story fans, Mr. Potato Head is no longer Mr. Potato Head. He's now just Potato Head. And I know a lot of people are like, what is the point of that? Like, why do they have to drop the Mr. and just make it Potato Head? Why can't they just come up with a separate Potato Head where it's just Potato Head? But as you know, there are people on different sides and it can get pretty get pretty tense. But I just think nowadays people are just trying to make sure they're more inclusive, that any product or toy, especially toy companies now, they want to make sure their brand or their toys represents, everyone across the spectrum. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, if you have, if you're a different religion or have a disability. They're really trying to do better and be more inclusive. So I think overall what they're trying to do is great. And the reality is, when it comes to things like Barbie or just toys in general, people do want to see or play with toys that look like them, because as we've talked about on the show before, and just in general conversations that continue to happen, representation is very, very, very important, especially for people of color. They want to see themselves represented, and I know that I think any time that I saw a Barbie that obviously looked like me, I just obviously gravitated towards it. Or even we can use Disney as an example with the first Black Disney princess, Tiana. Just seeing that representation is really, really critical and really, really important. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I know I spoke earlier, but we may have some new people tuning in. And again, I'm asking you guys, what do you feel about this? Tomorrow, March 10th, this is no longer required, at least for Governor Greg Abbott, for Texas and Mississippi, I will say so far. And I know down the line, other states might get on board. But what are you guys going to do with your mask? Are you still going into stores, places to eat? Are you still going to have your mask? Or are you guys like, thank God I don't have to wear this thing, good riddance? What are you guys' thoughts? I do want to hear from you and let me know if you guys are also a business owner. What are you guys going to do? Are you excited to open back up? Because I know, again, there was a lot of business owners who were like, yes, thank God. Business, sales can go back up, people coming in. Are there any business owners who are apprehensive about the whole thing? Kind of like, I don't know if I want all of these people coming back into my restaurant. It's making me, making me anxious, because people will be coming in without their mask, and maybe because they don't have to wear a mask, they won't feel like social distancing. So I want to hear from you guys. And let me know. So yeah, in the comments, again, like I always say, please don't hesitate. I love to hear from you guys. Again, this show is for you guys, and I want to talk about anything that interests you guys, and I want to hear your opinion. So without you guys, I wouldn't have a show, right? So yeah, we're going to take another quick break, and then I'm going to talk about some things, and then again, we will have our final guest on the show, Miss Jordan McKnight, who will be joining us again from Geneva, Switzerland. So I'm super excited to talk to her. She'll be sharing her experience abroad, living and working abroad, and especially during the pandemic. I can't imagine what that would be like, honestly. So I'm excited to hear from her. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back. All right, you guys, and we are back. If you're just now tuning in, this is the Jaira Nicole Show every Tuesday from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Time. And I'm so excited to always have the show and have great guests. I also want to remind you guys that it is Red Cross Month. So for those of you who may be wondering a way to give back or considering giving blood, every year, every month of the year, every day. It's a great time to do it. But if you're looking for something to do and a way to give back, this would be great. And I also want to share with you guys this video that tells you a little bit more about that.
Make giving a part of your New Year's resolution, save a life, and donate blood.
This is a Texas Metro News 60-second news brief, sponsored in part by KeyBand Productions. You can make videos with your phone, but KeyBand makes your audience feel like they were there. KeyBand, the video people.
Every 2 seconds, someone somewhere in the United States needs blood. But as the nation battles a global pandemic, a critical blood shortage threatens the health and well-being of people who need blood. Since the start of the pandemic, many community blood drives have been canceled, sending the nation's healthcare systems into a frenzy as more people choose to isolate themselves and stay home to avoid contracting the highly contagious virus. Blood supplies continue to deplete. Now, blood care centers and other organizations are desperately calling on community citizens for help. Just one donation can save up to 3 lives. To learn more about where you can go to donate blood, visit texasmetronews.com.
All right, you guys, and we are back again. I just wanted to share that with you guys to encourage you guys to go ahead and give blood. It's really, really important. I had an interview earlier in the year with a representative of Red Cross, and he was just sharing with us and telling us, because of the pandemic, again, like the video explained, there's so many people out there who didn't give blood as much as normal. And then like the video explained as well, in January, after the winter holidays, after Thanksgiving and Christmas, Kwanzaa, all of those, and Hanukkah, that's when blood supplies continue to deplete because people aren't giving as much. So it's really, really important and very critical because, again, with COVID, there are people who are in dire need of your blood. And I would imagine, and like Brian, the person I spoke to earlier and the year, has said, after you give blood, it's really inspiring, and the feeling that you get after knowing that just one donation saves 3 lives. So it's incredible, and I want to encourage everyone who's able, because we know not everyone can. So, or some people, the thought of needles, they're terrified of needles, and it's just like, But for those of you who feel comfortable, I just want to remind you again, March is Red Cross Month, and March is also nutrition month, you guys, National Nutrition Month. So this is a great time to ask you guys how everybody's doing on their New Year's resolutions. Is it still a thing for any of you guys out there? Is it still a thing? Have you guys changed maybe your eating habits since it is National Nutrition Month, or have you tried to get better with working out or being more productive? I know early in the year, we were talking about the New Year's resolutions, and I shared with you guys that my theme for this year was thriving in adversity. And I would say the biggest test so far, because we're only in March, right? The biggest test was that Texas winter storm that we dealt with. So trying to thrive in literally single digits in Texas, I will say, because we're not accustomed to it or used to that. That was pretty frightening and pretty challenging, but we all got through it, and we're better, even though there's still people out there who are still suffering. I have a friend who's a plumber, and he was just telling me that people still, after this crazy, I would say it was like 2 weeks of craziness with the winter storm. After 2 weeks of that, people are on a waiting list just to get a plumber because of the busted pipes and houses flooding and apartments flooding and condos flooding. Is just crazy. So, but things are better. Like I said, the weather is good. Spring is in 2 weeks, and I believe daylight savings time also is in 2 weeks. So I'm excited about that. Ready to spring forward, even though we lose an hour. But I'm just excited that at least getting home at 6 doesn't mean it's like already pitch black outside and you're just like, what? At least it'll start staying, you can start staying out a little bit later and the weather will be better and all of that stuff. So I'm super excited for that. So again, for those of you who may just now be tuning in, this is the Jaira Nicole Show every Tuesday from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Time. We're going to take another quick break and don't go away. We will be right back. Alrighty, you guys, and we are back. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you guys for all of the support so far. I just wanted to share with you guys that today I spoke about a little bit earlier, but for those of you who may have just now tuned in recently, today is National Get Over It Day. And so I was sharing a little bit earlier that every month or every Tuesday that I have my show, I do like to research those national observances and see what, see the different days that they have. They have all kinds of National Chili Day, National, I think I saw Banana Pudding Day, the National Write a Letter Day, all of those things. And I think it's so fun because I'm always curious in how those days started, one, and then if there's anybody who actually celebrates it and participates in it, you can see it on, you can see some people do it on social media. I'll get on Instagram and scroll right and see oh, today's National Pizza Day and people taking pictures with the pizza and things like that. But I saw National Get Over It Day and I thought it was pretty interesting. So apparently the guy who started it was trying to was having trouble getting over his ex-girlfriend in 2005. So he designated this day as National Get Over Day. So like I spoke on earlier, if there's anything that you're struggling with, you're having a hard time, you don't know what you want to say. I mean, you don't know necessarily what to say because you're struggling inside or you don't know what to do and you're just having a hard time, the best thing that they're saying that you can do is to get over it. So I want to encourage all of you guys to just get over whatever it is that's bothering you and troubling you. So you guys, I am going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then I'll be bringing on my final guest for today. Her name is Mrs. Jordan McKnight, and I'm super excited to have her on as she'll be joining us all the way from Switzerland. So again, stay tuned, and we will be right back, you guys.